When asked about how he felt about the constant pressures from the press, Thomas Jefferson simply stated, "Were it left up to me to decide if we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I shall not hesitate to pick the latter." Hello, my name is Jackson Queen. I am the broadcast editor for the Talmadge Devil's Tale. Today I'm going to be teaching you about the news and why you should be paying attention to it. First of all, what exactly is the news? The news, by definition, is newly received or important information, especially about recent or important events. Nowadays, news comes from a wide variety of sources, like the newspaper, television, radio talk shows, or online articles. In the United States, the freedom of press is protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. This means that the government cannot prohibit the publication of news. Now, there are certain limitations when it comes to freedom of press. Defamation, obscenity, or the incitement of violence are not protected by the First Amendment and are all illegal. But wait, the media is biased, you may cry. Well, what about it? Let's talk about that real quick. To be biased means to favor one opinion over the other. People tend to believe that news sources are biased towards certain political ideologies, so they believe that they are twisting the truth in the stories that they tell to try to push forward their own political ideology. All news sources that exist live on a spectrum. They either lean left, like CNN, or they lean right, like Fox News. The best thing that you can do to avoid this bias is two things. One, don't go into the news looking for a specific answer or opinion. Or two, use unbiased sources. Firstly, going into anything with your opinion already formed is going to skew how you view things. So going into anything looking for an answer or an opinion is going to push you towards the biased news that you're trying to stay away from. So try to keep an open mind and just to look for the facts. Secondly, going directly towards the biased news sources could be a problem. So try to find news sources that are unbiased and don't have a political agenda. These news sources, their only goal should be to inform the public and give them the facts. Based on the updated media chart provided by asfontesmedia.com, the best and most unbiased news sources are AP, or the Associated Press, ABC, and CBS. But the question arises, why do we have the news? Well, the news is here to inform the public about changing events, issues, or characters from the outside world. Most of the events that happen in the world today would most likely never be publicly known if they weren't covered by the news. Ongoing wars like what's happening in the Middle East right now, pandemics like what we're dealing with right now, or any other crises that are happening around the world would be largely in the dark. The media and the press is largely considered to be the fourth branch of our government. One of the many powers that the media has over our government is to keep the people in charge and people in authority accountable for their actions. A perfect example of this is the Vietnam War. Now let's jump back in time and look at how the media actually influenced this event. In 1965, the United States and the Soviet Union were in the middle of a tense 10-year conflict within the Indo-Chinese Peninsula. Up until that point, American government officials preached that this ongoing conflict was to protect democracy and to stop the spread of communism. U.S. citizens believed that they were winning the war and strongly supported it. This was all based on what the government officials were telling the public. That was until 1965. This is when U.S. news companies started sending journalists and news reporters to South Vietnam to start documenting the war. Stories, images, videos, and articles started flooding the mainstream media within the U.S. The Vietnam War was widely considered the television war, as it was being broadcasted to the entire world. The horrors of war became evident to the general public, and many anti-war movements ensued. This continued for another 10 years, and tensions between the general public and the U.S. government grew higher and higher. Distrust of the government became widespread, and people started paying more attention to the news and worldly events. So, why should you pay attention to the news? Well, that's an easy answer. As a U.S. citizen, it's your duty to know what's happening with the world around you. Things are constantly changing, and you should know about it. The news, whether good or bad, is going to change your life, whether you know it or not. Take 2020 for example. One small story about a small virus in China turned into a worldwide pandemic. Or a gender reveal party in California turned into a wildfire that spread all the way across the West Coast. The constant cause and effect in our world is loud, and it's something that can't be ignored or stopped. So instead of isolating yourself, watch the news. read an article, listen to a podcast, watch TV, whatever. Just make sure that you're informed about the world. My message to you, pay attention to what's happening around you. Try to stay informed. The things that are happening around us right now are things that have been circulating in the news for weeks on end. Thank you. Have a great day.